Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hello, magical women. In today's modern world, women are feeling numbed out and living dull, grey lives, lacking the radiance and joy they came here to fully express. They are disconnected from their bodies, feeling they've become hardened to life, burdened by forcing and pushing in a masculine feeling way. They long deeply for connection with their sisters, to heal their feminine wounding and reconnect their feminine wisdom and power. So, I've created the path for those magical women to learn to connect to their bodies, desires and pleasures, create in softer, nurturing, loving ways, become intimate with the cyclical wisdom of the feminine and reignite their magnetism. Beginning at the end of June, we will be guiding you on the path of reinitiating and reclaiming your feminine in Invoke Your Feminine Mystery. Find out more at www.nicolebarton.co.uk/feminine-mystery. My guest today is the brilliant Dominic Scaffidi, and oh, did I love this magical conversation. Dominic is an ICF Master Certified Coach and partners with clients to point them to the unlimited potential of who they really are. Through accessing their own innate wisdom, clients are supported as they create a life that they love, both personally and professionally. Grounded in the teachings of Sydney Banks, he applies a deep and practical understanding of the teachings of Abraham-Hicks for how we create our own reality. Dominic and I have both walked the path of Ascension and the Three Principles, and in this unique episode, Dominic and I explored a juicy debate commonly found in the worlds of Ascension and Descension. Is it all just thought, or do we need healing to manifest magical lives? What we co-created was a beautiful, synergistic expression of what healing actually is, how contrast creates healing if we stay open to it and choose it that way. We alchemised some common myths and misunderstandings around the Three Principles and Ascension paths and explored how our bodies are central to manifesting magical lives and the power that can be found in descending into the body to heal and alchemise its wisdom and expand into the embodiment of our true magic. Let's dive in. Welcome, Dominic. My goodness, I have been looking forward to this conversation with you because you have such a brilliant mind, and we've always co-created together so beautifully, and your wisdom has really been a huge part of my own journey as well. So I'm delighted to have you on the show exploring with me, and in my eyes you're quite the kingly magician and your passion for magic is a joy to be bathed in. So I know this is going to be a juicy conversation. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this exploration together. And yes, I've enjoyed all our interactions. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, no, we were just having a chat in the pre-recording, and it really became apparent that whilst in this kind of in the Three Principles world, there is quite a lot of resistance to this idea of like healing. That actually there is quite a lot of synergy also between the work that we both do. So I'm really excited to explore this topic of like, is it all just thought, or do we need healing to manifest magical lives? It feels like, it's going to be a juicy one.
Yes, Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it. I already was learning a lot as we were just having our initial conversations. So that's what's
Yeah.
great about exploration.
Yeah, yeah, and you had a really great point actually. I wonder if you just wanted to open with about kind of us being open to expanding by kind of, I guess, witnessing the contrast. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but
Yeah, I think it's a great place to open because I think when people listen to this, I think it might be useful for them to consider how they're listening. Right. You and I speak about things differently. And what I've been immersed in, and what you've been immersed in are in different paths or different places. And so, there's a different way of perspective. And so people listening in, they're also going to come from different places. And so this part to me has been such a value for me in my life and in this exploration. And what that is that when I'm in hearing something and interacting with another, and I immediately in my mind I kind of go, oh yeah, I don't agree with that. Oh, that's just wrong. That's not even true what they're saying, right? Like, and so in my mind, the minute I go there, so I used to go there, and then I used to think, oh, well, they just don't understand. Like, they so, and I'm going to explain it to them, right? Like, and so I used to go there like that. Um, and what I found more, or the other thing I would do is I would just say, well, that's obviously wrong. And I would dismiss an entire teaching or an entire, kind of modality. I would just dismiss it because I could see it's wrong. Like, that's not true, right? Because I can see what's true. What instead happens for me now is when I pause and I kind of go, oh, this is so interesting that somebody who's very, a person who's capable, intelligent, and all of that is exploring something and seeing value in it. And I'm not. Like, what I'm hearing there, I just don't see it. And so instead of deciding and voting and saying, well, mine is the correct one, and I'll just dismiss that, if we can sit in it kind of wondering, curious, and the part I wonder and I'm curious about is, I wonder how that may be saying a similar thing. I wonder how that may be pointing to the same thing. And even just you and I, before we got on here, you were speaking to healing and different language, which I'm using less of. And I already was expanding my understanding around all of this. Just as I'm listening and exploring, like, what do you mean, and how does that, how is that explained for you? And then really what happens is you get expansion. So, yeah, I think that's an important way, even for people listening to us.
I love that so much. And actually, you've just used the exact word, expansion. It feels to me very much, and I don't know what you want to share about your exploration of healing, but it very much feels to me that the word healing could also be the word expansion. It feels, we're talking here to the secret witches of the world who will be listening, and I know many of them have come from similar paths to us in terms of the three principles. So I know that they're very excited to listen to this one. This when it's out. But yeah, it very much feels to me like the word healing is almost exactly that expansion of really seeing what is held unconsciously and being able to expand beyond that.
Mm, yeah, that's a great way to describe it because, well, even you think there is something called thriving and aliveness, and that, let's say, is the natural state. Because if you looked at a tree or if you looked at an animal, it it is, given its conditions, it thrives. No matter where you put it, and if you put it into some place that isn't the right soil and there's too many rocks around and even a fence, it will thrive under those conditions and in the way that it can. We've seen trees, they'll grow branches through fences, they'll do all kinds of things. So there is a thriving that happens. Now, that when it comes to a plant or an animal, it's like they are maximum life. They are maximum aliveness. So the trouble with us, we're a little different, right? So we get this energy that is a universal energy that creates worlds. And we also can thrive and create worlds, create a life of thriving and abundance and love and joy. We can be living to the max, right? And then the difference is, but we can think in a particular way, whereas animals can't. What they will do is just follow. They will follow and just allow life to move them. We can think, we can listen to what other people say and think, oh, they're right. They're probably what they're saying is right. And I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't. What I really want to do is I want to sing or I want to do music. But you know what? They're probably right. I should be more responsible. And it begins like that. So it begins like that. An animal would never do that. A tree can't do that, right? But it begins like that. I shouldn't, a tree would never say, oh, I shouldn't grow that tall. All the other trees will be so jealous, right? I shouldn't blossom these flowers every spring because not all the other trees have that. And so trees would never do this. We will. And then the minute we do, we are sick. Is the way to do it. The minute we do that, we're sick. And so there's something, but it's like we're doing it to ourselves. And of course, and then over time we forgot we're doing it. And then starts manifesting. And then healing, when it comes to the healing is it's kind of like removes it. It kind of dissipates that. And then, as you said, you get expansion. You get alivenesses back because you're not interfering anymore. You let go of this.
Yeah, I love what you said there. And it really points to, for me, the journey, we were just chatting before, the journey of the kind of secret witch. The secret witch is really just someone who doesn't know that she is already a powerful creatrix. And this whole journey really is her walking the path of, I guess the word I would use now is really healing the wounds that she has, these old stories about who she is, as not very powerful, as someone who's not creating. And it's about her seeing that actually she is this kind of majestic power of creation, ultimately. So that really speaks to that, I feel, because it's almost like, there's so much expansion in this journey into our fullness, is the way I would describe it.
So that really resonates with me, that and it's how I have come to see it and how I speak about this, is that so the truth is always there. That's always there. Because without that magical which is how the language, right? So that you are already that. And it's important to see that. You are already that. You always were. You always will be. So that never changes. And it is because of that you've been so powerful in being able to create these wounds, create this limitation, and the degree of sometimes suffering or pain or trauma that is caused and held. It it is because you're that powerful that that even happens. So in I know in my expression of this, you know, you go to my website and it says you create your own reality, and we are creators. We are powerful creators. We create our own reality, and and then I say I have a program and it's called Deliberate Creator. And then, but the first thing I say when we get there is like, well, you know, you create your own reality. And so I'm not going to teach that. And people are like, but that's why I signed up. I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to teach that. Like, because that you already are. And so there's nothing to teach. You are already this, and you never were not that, and you're never going to be anything other than that. So that's not what this is about. But what it is that you are that, and I'll say it this way, but it's kind of like that you've been doing it, and it's kind of like you've been doing it asleep, or it's like you've been doing it drunk or something. Like it's kind of like, you know. And so what we do is like we explore this, like let's understand this, and then you start to find things about how you've been creating something which is a limitation, right? So there are no limitations. You have to create them, because who you really are is a powerful creator. So in order for you to be less than that, only you would have to create that. And so if you could understand how that works, and in a way, in kind of exploring this, it's like the moment you can see how you create things, what we're moving toward is to move toward a place of you being more deliberate or awake or aware, so that you can
Yes.
be who you really are. Because right now you're not being who you really are, right? So you're creating
Oh,
this
yeah.
thing and not being that.
Yes, I love that. So I always talk about in this journey, really, it's about the secret witch really becoming and being who she longs to be, which ultimately is the fullest expression of her soul. And yeah, there's so much in that. It feels like, again, it just comes back to my languaging for what you just described, I guess, is you talked about it being kind of these unconscious, I don't know if you use the word stories, but there's these unconscious beliefs, I guess, or thoughts, that yeah, are really, the way I would describe it in the work that I do with the witch is like really just wanting alchemizing to be seen. They're kind of hidden away in shadow, unconscious beliefs that we can't really see. And for me, that's where the healing is really beginning to see how these stories have been unconsciously creating our lives. And I think the other part to that is that feels relevant to me is that where the witch is, as a secret witch, and it's very much been my own journey, is like we innocently create these stories from that place of not seeing that isn't true. That is kind of the unconscious way of being. So I don't know if there's something else that I want to say to that. I don't know if there's anything you want to say to that before I move on to what I was going to say as well next.
Oh, well, I'm totally resonating with when you said unconsciously create these.
Mm,
Wow, of course, right? And I think that innocently we create these. And of course, right? Because who would do that on purpose? Like, what? How would you do something like that on purpose? Like literally hurting or limiting yourself? Why would you do that? So there, and I think that's a very important when we're working with people to see the innocence in it. And this is why also it's important that you do the exploration. Like we have to do this exploration. How you can't work with people when you haven't done this exploration, when you haven't seen how it is that you are doing that, and you've done these things where you know the creation of those own limitations that have caused you pain, and so then yeah, so I think that's an important thing,
for
reminder.
sure. Yeah, beautiful. I think the other thing that I wanted to dive into there that feels really relevant, and I know we chatted a bit about this in the kind of pre-chat, was that these stories then become like embodied in us. And I think you described it as like there's the feeling that kind of yeah, I can't remember how you described it actually, but there's something about the feeling. So I wondered if you could talk to that, because it very much feels like exactly that, like our bodies contain that wisdom to let us know that we are unconsciously creating what we don't want. And that actually that is where we need to almost heal and expand past the old stories that we're holding. I think it's just really, for me, witnessing that we do hold that within the fabric of ourselves when we're in those stories, when we haven't managed to yet alchemize the power, the sovereignty required to know who we fully are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm starting to see, even now as you're talking, kind of the power in even the language you're using around healing and stored in the body and those kinds of things. Because from a lot of, where I'm coming from in terms of a lot of the teaching and understanding, there's a favoritism that goes on to favor the spiritual and to favor the formless nature of who we are. Is like, oh, come on, but who I really am is this, expansive, spiritual, right? And oh yeah, this little limited thing here, limitation of me, and in a lot of spirituality, sometimes will go into dismissiveness.
That was certainly my own journey as well. I think it's the way I was describing it to you just before was almost like I created this misunderstanding as if my body wasn't important. And I think, again, really owning that was my creation of the three principles that way, because for me, the three principles is like this amazing part of the puzzle, and still I've seen more and more about the way that I have created that as almost this misunderstanding to dismiss the body, and actually there is a lot of wisdom as to how we are creating held in the body.
Oh yeah, that dismissing the form or devaluing the form is interesting because even in that there's a separation being created about reality. Oftentimes people will talk about let's explore the nature of reality, and the nature of reality, the true nature is formless, the formless nature, the spiritual nature of reality. But I would suggest that there is not a spiritual energy that is not in expression. I would
Ooh.
suggest
I like that.
I would suggest that that's some concept made up in your mind, but that if you look to your direct experience would suggest that there is only spirituality expressing into form. So what we call material, so in a way, as long as we say it like this, in a way we could turn around and say, look, it's all spiritual. The truth is it's all spiritual. In Three Principles language, they'll say it's all thought. And thought they mean as a capital T, an energy, a formless energy of thought. But if you say that it's all spiritual or it's all thought, then if you leave out the part that of the spiritual expression, then you are creating a concept which isn't true. If you are talking about formless on its own, you have created a concept that is actually not true. There is no such thing as formless energy that is unexpressed. So there's no such thing as spiritual existing somewhere that is not expressing itself. In other words, there is no God that is unexpressed. And so that we go somewhere where God is right here. Where spirit is right here, expressing itself through you and through all. So if you say it's all spiritual and you talk about its totality, Sydney Banks did this too. He said there's formless and there's form, and formless, it comes into form first via thought. That was the missing link. He talked about thought being the missing link between the spiritual and world here. And then after he explained it, after he did that sort of description, he said, oh, and that's not true, because that's just made up, he said. There's really only the allness. Right? So he did the explanation, and it'd be just so you knew what he's talking about. And then he said, oh, and that's just made up anyway. That's not even true. So what's true is the allness, and the allness is all of it, the one side of the coin with the other. So I think we just get into trouble when this is what happens with the dismissive. When you're dismissing the physical body, you are dismissing spiritual expression.
I love that so much. That piece about expression, really, really love that. And you said something very similar to, again, the language I would use to kind of describe it is that it's like the body is really the only place where we can actually create magic and witness that in form. So why would we not want to be in our bodies is like what occurs to me there.
Oh, I love what you're saying there. The way I've said that for when people go on a spiritual journey and they try to sort of transcend this, right? There's that, right? So like so my destination here is to transcend me, right? And it's funny. For this, I'm often thinking of the way that Abraham-Hicks. I'm a follower of Abraham-Hicks and real student of those teachings. But they have a funny way to do this, because Abraham-Hicks, a lot of the teaching is around creating in form, and you as a creator, right? And then what they'll say is, but they're always acknowledging. Always, what they say is who you really are is pure source energy consciousness. This is who you really are, is that. Who you really are is spirit. And a part of you has focused into this physical existence, while the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. So they're enclosed, right? So part of you's here while the greater part of you is there. Now, just think about it. The greater part of you remains non-physically focused. This is like really who you are is non-physically. And a part of you focuses here. Now, if what you're doing here is trying to transcend it so you can be that, it just makes no sense, right? It's kind of like Abraham will often say, if you had any idea how much you wanted to be in these physical bodies, you would stop spending all of this time trying to figure out how to get out of them.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, that's just gorgeous. Yeah, it just really speaks to why the body is so important. And what's just brought to mind is I remember querying this when I first kind of dived into what I would call the path of soul. It feels like almost that descent back into the body, which was very much needed from where I approached this from, because again, I was very much in that when I was teaching the Three Principles. I was very much in that kind of misunderstanding of we're just here to ascend, ignore the body. And it was actually when I got pregnant and was giving birth, my body was like really feeling the fear of these doubts, these secret witch doubts and fears that I couldn't give birth. Like that, it was just, I was really doubting my capacity to give birth. And I just dismissed it all as just thought, it doesn't matter. And in doing so, like you say, very much my body was like, no, you need to take note of what is going on here, what is being brought to your attention. And my face became paralyzed with Bell's palsy. And so, yeah, the right side of my face was completely paralyzed. And what it actually did was kind of brought me into this descent back into my body to remind me that actually the body is really, really important. And what it uncovered was even more of a deeper expansion into the understanding that I was creating it all. And I think that can be quite difficult for a secret witch to comprehend from her place of being a secret witch, if that makes sense. But it was kind of like an initiation into a deeper level of power and magic that I'm like so grateful for now, because it has really helped me expand into, I guess, Queen Witch, for want of a better word. So Queen Witch is the woman who really knows that she is that all, that she is power and magic. And without that descent into the body, into soul, that wouldn't really have, that's kind of like my awakening to
Oh,
all of it. Mm.
yeah, beautifully said. The what I'm really seeing there too. So these things like pain and physical manifestations, they're indivisible. Like it's indivisible. It's not separate from something else at its source, and so they are an instant way to go right to it. No better way to go right to it. The thing with the body is, and here's an agreement, right? Like all sort of spiritual seekers and all that, they will speak to the importance or the power of now. That your power is in the present moment. Your power is now. And when you depart from now, you suffer, right? And then when you come back to now, you're in your power. Here's the cool thing that as a tool or just your body never leaves now. So you might go off into yesterday. You might go off into tomorrow. So your body will never leave this present moment. And so this attention to the body is an access to your power. That access, because that attention to your body, when you feel something, when you are feeling something, that feeling is now. It is right now. If you give attention to the energy that moves through your hand, if you give attention to that feeling or sensation anywhere, that brings you right now. You are so if your power and power of creation is in the present moment, and that's the only place it is, you can't create anything yesterday, and you can't create anything last week, you can't create anything a month from now. When you are creating it right now, right now. And a month from now, when something is there, you are creating it right now, a month from now. It's now, right? So,
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I love that. There's something actually that I wanted to dive into, which I haven't mentioned yet, which was the whole purpose of this conversation was really inspired from that post, that beautiful post that you put in your group that we chatted about a while ago. And there was something in that, I think, around ancestral healing, ancestral wounding, which I thought was really, really interesting. And again, I think the bit for me that felt like really interesting to explore was this idea of, because I know there was a lot of resistance to the idea of ancestral wounding in general in the 3P community. And yeah, there was something for me about this idea of like epigenetics, because I talk a lot about the witch wound. And this is something that I have really started to, I guess, really just feel into, is this idea that there's almost this sense of going back ancestrally, that when witches were burned at the stake, they kind of embodied these ideas. And it was your talk about the now actually that just prompted me to remember this, is almost this idea that our ancestors didn't necessarily have this really deep wisdom about awakening to all that we are. And so the idea of the concept of epigenetics, which is how like these wounds are passed and are in our cells, and then these get passed down through generations. So I don't know whether you can speak to that at all, because I know we had a beautiful conversation about that in your group. So I'm just wondering if there's anything there that we can bring as like a gem from that.
Yeah. Well, and what that is in the, I think what's important there is the kind of the how it's passed down. This is a technicality, but you know I'm such a geek when it comes to these things, right? So it's a technicality, right? So you could say it's passed down through bloodlines. A lot of people would describe it that way, passed down through bloodlines, which would mean it's passed down physically, right? And I would say it as it's passed down through thought lines. It's passed down through thought paths, right? So, but remember, if we don't divide these, right? In other words, thought being an energy that is manifested, and so the physical, everything physical is a spiritual expression. And so if you are seeing sort of heredity and even race and societal traumas and things, like look, our parents or grandparents who were through Great Depression and wars. I mean, if you don't think something was not passed down to you about that, but even their parents who kind of went through, some sort of persecution or something, like if you don't think that something hasn't flowed here that is in you, even, in the Bible, it talks about the sins of the father passed to the sons. And but sin, people kind of like, oh, that's terrible. You're saying if he did something bad, then I get. But sin being an error or misunderstanding, like, right? So if you take an error, a sin, an error, and that error is passed down, is taught and goes. So when you look that way, the material, the physical, could be studied, and you could see, oh, there's something in genes, or there's something here that is physically there. But again, if you don't separate and you say, yeah, but this gene that we are studying is a spiritual expression. There's a spiritual expression here. This is a thought expression in a way, right? So it's somewhere in there that the harmony of both of what everybody is saying can be followed along.
I love that. I love the idea of thought lines, and I think for me the key part in that is seeing that those thought lines are expressed in the body, and I think we've already kind of covered that.
Always.
And I just love that, because it's almost like, again, we're coming back to the body, showing where we are creating in a way that we don't want, and that gives us the possibility to alchemize that and expand past that way of being, that enables us to create as our full selves, as our full expression, i.e. from Secret Witch alchemizing it into Queen Witch, if we're talking in that language. Yeah, beautiful. And so you can still see how, whether it's thought or whatever, it's still impacting our bodies in some way, unless we alchemize that.
And let's even say that maybe the most important stuff would be showing up in the body. And let's explore that a bit, because let's just in understanding what goes on here, right? So there's and by the way, this is a bit of an aside, but we may as well add it in now. So there is something important about the body from a spiritual perspective, in that, like Sydney Banks said as well, you chose your body, right? And so it's interesting. And he said, you chose your body. Now, the thing when Sydney Banks talked is you got to be clear, who is he talking to? Because he was talking to everybody and he's talking to you at multiple levels. So if the one focused in the body thinks that he's talking to the one focused in the body, he's talking to all that you are, right? So he's talking to all of you as you chose this body. And Abraham says the same thing. You are pure source energy consciousness, and a part of you is focused into this physical existence. Abraham will even say you came in clusters. In other words, you and I here, our friends and the others in the communities we've been in, it's kind of like, potentially, and even in our families, we came in clusters, we came all together. We're all here, including our enemies, including the ones that really bug us the most, right? So anyway, but so I just wanted to kind of put that to sort of link it. But then there's this other thing that you said with the, once you start to get physical manifestations and, things like disease and other stuff. So it could be that the body is kind of, whatever's happening in the body is the most important thing. Okay, let's say it two ways. It's the most important thing to pay attention to, and it is the thing you've been paying the least attention to. By the time that manifestation, then that thing is what you have been paying the least amount of attention to for it to have gotten to that state. And so if there's an indivisibility between the energy and the spiritual energy and expression, an indivisibility between thought and its physical expression. So then if I sit here, right, just intellectually in my mind, and I kind of go, oh, that's a limiting belief. Like, oh, look at me, I'm feeling doubtful about my business. That's a limiting belief. And I dismiss it, right? Well, that's kind of cool. That was easy, wasn't it? But here's the thing. If I don't catch it, and this is where Abraham says, if you don't catch it, and I engage and I believe, then it moves from doubt to something stronger. Ooh. Eventually. Because this is the thing. People talk about thoughts are fleeting, but they are only fleeting if you leave them alone. If you give them attention, you hold them.
Yeah, interesting. There's something in that. One of my favorite quotes is by Carl Jung. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is now, but it's something like, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will forever direct our lives, and we will call it fate. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to there. I don't know, unless I missed the point of what you were saying.
Well, what will happen? Well, in a way, from that sort of fleeting thought, like I said in the example, I kind of go, oh, I'm pessimistic, or I doubt that's going to work out. Oh, I caught it. That's like just a limitation. And so I dismiss it. Really easy. But when I don't catch it, so now it's like just there. It's like, well, but I've never done anything like this. But that's not a thought. That's a fact, right? Let's say, right? See, I didn't catch that there's a thought there that I just believed. Yeah. And you know what? And by the way, it's going to take a lot of hard work, because nothing gets built without a lot of hard work. So notice I didn't catch that was a thought believed. So what happens is I just continue to think it. I hold it. And by the way, I hold it, and when I say a belief, it's a thought you keep thinking. Well, you cannot think a thought without its manifestation. You cannot think a thought. You cannot hold a thought without its manifestation. So if you are holding a thought of doubt, and law of attraction will take that vibration and expand it. So the doubt will become stronger, and eventually that doubt turns to worry. that worry will become more. It'll become, and again, but you're not paying attention because you're like, yeah, but you have to do this. This is just true. And everyone says so. And that's what I was told growing up, right? So you kind of, so this expands and expands. Well, you must hold, as these keep going into discouragement and into, insecurity and eventually despair and fear. The momentum of this energy is so strong. And, at first it disturbed you sort of like a bad feeling, but feeling as manifested, if you're not picking up. In other words, if you were at a state of ease, is one thing, you're in harmony. But if you're in a bad feeling, you're in a state of dis-ease. If you keep expanding dis-ease, a feeling of dis-ease, there's a physical manifestation. So you could say that the physical issue really is calling for your attention.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, and that really does sum up that quote actually that I shared. So that makes I really love that. It's almost like, again, pointing back to the work that I do now with my women is that kind of shadow work to really illuminate all of those unconscious beliefs that we've kind of innocently batted away, and they've become this kind of horrible feeling in the body. I think, again, there's an example of this in terms of when I was misunderstanding the lens of the three principles. My example of that was, I guess I had all of those limiting beliefs. I think you used the example of the business, like even just creating my business. I guess I had all of these secret witch thoughts that I wasn't powerful and all of this, and was ignoring those. And actually, that one of the ways that I have illuminated since that I was then creating from was almost the benefit of using the three P's lens because for me the tagline was like, do nothing. So one of the benefits of me kind of really being misunderstanding the three principles was that I was like, great, I can just sit here and wait for the universe to provide me with all of this abundance. And actually, I still had all of these beliefs that were stopping me from receiving that abundance. So it was almost like I was just kind of unconsciously stuck, keeping myself stuck in this idea that there wasn't any power and almost, again, like just not doing anything, because I couldn't see the deeper beliefs that were stopping me from being my fullness, if that makes sense.
That's a huge place of confusion and misunderstanding within three principles, in that the do nothing is the thing that they do. Right. So a lot of, and that's from a misunderstanding. There's, when it's misunderstood, the do nothing is what you do. Right. So if you're ever in a bad state, do nothing. So that's the technique, right?
Mm.
That's the technique. But what three principles is helpful with is that all techniques circumvent wisdom. So when you are feeling this anxiety or this thing, and then you remember the dogma of do nothing as a technique, you circumvent your own wisdom and you choose to do nothing. You choose to accept dogma. In the noise of your own thinking, as you go with this do nothing, because that's what I've been told, that's what good people do, the good people who really understand it, right? And so now, as opposed to your own wisdom, you listen to the dogma of do nothing, right? And you miss out on your own wisdom, and your own wisdom was guiding you to take a bath. Your own wisdom was guiding you to go out in nature. Your wisdom was inviting you to reconnect. You couldn't hear any of that because you knew that there was nothing to do.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just so funny when I look back, because there's just it's just there were so many benefits to being that way. But yeah, now I very much see that there's nothing to do, but there's always an aligned action to take. So
Absolutely. Yeah. There's you. This would be then an inert spiritual separate from here. Spirit spirit and formless in manifestation is in activity, right? You know, the way I would say it is this: you are this unique expression of the universe, and you are here for 100 years. You are being you Do you think that the universe wanted to show up here physically as you for 100 years and do nothing? Seriously? The universe is bursting at the seams is bursting at the seams to experience life, to get in action, to live fully through you, to move you. And you are being inspired into action. You are being inspired to do things, to create things. And so when you say, oh, no, but I really explored spiritual understanding and there is nothing to do. And so what I'm to do is to sort of go back into that still, quiet state. Well, yeah, for a second maybe, so that you can reharmonize. And the moment you touch it, you will feel its activity. You will feel its aliveness. Do you think it's sitting around waiting for you to get there and rest in peace together?
Yeah, I love that. Resting in peace while still alive. Yeah.
After the 100 years.
Yeah.
The 100 years here. And you know, that spirituality, that spirit is eternal. And it has eternity to be in its spiritual nature. It has less than 100 years to be in the physical manifestation of Nicole.
Yeah.
Do you know how much time that is? That's less than the blink of an eye. It's less than the blink of an eye. And when it's gone, it's gone. In other words, you can never repeat it. It does not matter how much spirit comes back in as Nicole 2 and Nicole 3. It doesn't matter. You will never repeat this possibility. There's a unique possibility, and it's unique in terms of who you are, how you came, what's going on right now. And so if that you're not aligning with and coming alive in that, then it will never be, and the world will not have it, right?
I love that so much. And yeah, just for me, that feels like there was so much deep healing in seeing that, in having that revealed, that kind of shadowy way of being, is, as I would describe it, that was just deeply healing for me to be able to alchemize this new way of being in which, yes, I'm now taking aligned actions rather than sitting there doing nothing. So yeah. Gorgeous. I just was thinking where to go now. There was something around, you talked about, or you didn't say these words, but the way I describe it is like we've come here with this kind of soul contract almost. And it feels to me that there's almost this unique set of wounding, almost these unique beliefs that we hold that almost, as we alchemize them, become gifts for the world, almost the magic and the medicine that we have to offer to others. It's very much been my experience with the witch, is that if I hadn't illuminated these wounding patterns of thought, or however you want to describe them, then I wouldn't then be able to help other women who are, living in their secret witch, to be able to illuminate and expand past that, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think there's something really important in that. A coming here as a woman versus coming here as a man, right, is a very different experience. Coming here as a Black person, as an Indigenous person, and coming here into a culture or race that is more persecuted, that is a very different experience. And the expansion available in that is entirely different, right? So again, if who you are is pure source energy consciousness, you are a consciousness that, to come into such limitation and consensus conditioning or reality, to come into that and expand to be the creator that you are. It's one thing to come into a male body and do that, and it is an entirely different thing to come into a female body and do that. You can see the difference in the experience that you would have coming in, and the opportunities within it would be enormous as well. So yeah, there is a sort of realizing that this is not a problem you were stuck with. You actually wanted this. You actually wanted this. There's something here for your expansion. And of course, there is something here that through your expansion you benefit all. You are a demonstration. You're a demonstration of that. An example of it. That's our greatest ability to teach and influence and uplift others, by the way. It's our own work. It's our own work rather than, the fact that we're teaching anybody. It's the fact that it is our own work.
I love that. And again, for me, it's that word is like healing, but yeah, very much makes sense from a lens of expansion to me. Yeah. Oh, yes. This is juicy. I'm living this.
Yeah. There is it's interesting because there's an excitement to the healing. You could look, I don't know, but it's exciting. It's fun. It's whatever. But, we forget. But anyway, why would we go into an amusement park, right? And you would at some point, you go into an amusement park. And I want to ride those, and when you're little or something, I want to ride those cars that, they're actually on a track, but they go around the park. And so you think you're driving, but you're not, right? And this thing kind of goes around, and it's all very gentle and great. But it's so thrilling because you're, that. But, others go into the park and I want to go on the Wild Beast roller coaster. Okay, that's just horrible. Look at this thing. I mean, it'll make you sick. It'll scare the hell out of you, right? But and it's kind of like, why would anyone choose this? It's here, but why would anyone choose that? And meanwhile they're going on that, and they come to the end of it, and they go, "Oh my God, I want to go on again." or I hope. Or is there a bigger one? Do they have a bigger one here? I want to try that one, right? So. We're all and when you think about from the healing or from the, I don't know, the horrible experiences potentially that there's an intention of going through that experience. It's for the joy of it. That sounds awkward and strange, but it is for the joy of it. It's the feeling of healing beyond it, of a restoring of aliveness where it was a limited, right?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, there's so much in that. I'm just thinking in terms of some of the secret riches who may be listening who haven't yet kind of fully come to know their power, and how they might be receiving that as like, well, really? Did I really choose all of this? And yeah, because I think it's a real symbol to me of the level of power that you kind of express by being able to fully own that. And I think, again, that's something that I'm deeply in the work of in terms of owning my power to create as a queen witch. But I guess, what would you say to the women at home who don't yet know that is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this part is so important. Like, the biggest message you want to really take is the trusting yourself and the listening to yourself, right? And I think that's the greatest gift or benefit we can give people, those of us who are coaches and teachers and that kind of thing. And it is always in, well, I'll say it like this. Do you know who they are, right? Do you know who they are? Because the students that come, the clients that come for coaching, if you don't know who they are, you're of no help, right? So do you know who they are? And so when you know who they are, then that is beautiful, because that's when they can be held and safe as they come to remember who they are, right? So that, and this is the benefit that you can provide, is that from the knowing of who they are, all is well. This is okay. It's all good. You know what? It's gonna work out. It's never not going to work out. You just know that. And so they can really be held in that knowing. But now if we flip over to them, though, and even from our side, but the way they're going to come there has to be on their own. It has to be on their own. And so everything we do has to keep increasing their own trust in themselves and in their own knowing. So we can't get them to skip over ever to listen to me. Listen to me. I've explored this, right? Skip what you know and what you feel and listen to me, right? That is just horrible, right? So it is horrible and even damaging. This is now the problem, where what happens is they'll embody something or a shadow that's unhealed and unintegrated and skipped over and listen to me because this is what's true. Except that's not what you need. That's not what you need from your perspective and your experience. And the only one who knows what you need is you. And what I want to support you in is to trust you to listen to you. Right? And that is helpful, because if you can trust yourself to listen to yourself, to see what you need here, you will build this trust in yourself. Because the wisdom that's flowing to you is flowing very specifically to you. That spiritual wisdom is flowing very specifically with what you need. It's not flowing over here with my description of a spiritual understanding where you are the creator of your own reality. What? That's not your wisdom flowing to you. Right? So you got to hear it right where it is. It'll be very specific to you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much in that. And I think there's something in there around sometimes also shadows being unconscious to us, and that being the power of having a guide in that as well, to really help us see that this is, where we're creating what we don't want. So I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to that. I think almost that's one of the first things that the secret witch will begin to see in this work, is really that, and by secret witch, I'm really talking about the woman who doesn't yet know her power and magic, but it's beginning to see that actually she is creating from these shadows, from what she doesn't want, is often the first powerful step in that journey. And I think there's also a power in that story in and of itself, because we talk about the power of story, the power of beliefs, the power of thought. That kind of witch archetype feels to me to be so powerful. I know it certainly has been in my own journey, like seeing who the secret witch is as this character, this story of someone who doesn't know her power, so who doesn't know her capacity to create, and seeing that can be healed and alchemized so that she can actually embody the queen witch, or the witch queen, as I call her, which is somebody who really fully embodies her own wisdom, her own power, all of the things that make the queen witch, her magic.
I think that's a great description of when you're working with people that you know what's there, what's really there, and then you can see that they are using their power to create in a way that isn't serving them, and that you're so because you can see that. And of course there's got to be a gentleness with which you help someone see that, especially when someone says to you, no, don't you know what I like, don't you know what I'm living under, and don't you know what you understand the reality of that for them. You understand the validity of that for them. But and I guess I think our journey or whatever as coaches or teachers or whatever is, how can I understand, appreciate the validity of where their experience is, while holding the witch queen, while holding and not deviate. In other words, who's going to convince who? Are they going to talk you into that they don't have the power? Or will you be grounded enough in understanding what's going on, and holding that powerfully, but communicating gently enough and at the place that they can hear it?
Yeah, I love that. I think what you're talking to in terms of my language there, and I know you'll definitely agree with this one, is it feels to me very much this kind of idea of like really being power from love. It feels like that is one of the most kind of important parts of all of this, is like really returning to love and to witnessing what is happening from a really loving place, with a lot of compassion, a lot of self-compassion, and really holding the vision of who we actually have come here to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That love and kind of that perspective that you say, that is the greatest holding, right? That's all the power there is. And so can you shower the space with that love, that safety, that non-judgmental ability to be safe and express what there really is? Because it is in that it's like you said, the shadow can come into the light.
Yeah.
Right? There's no fear, because in a space of love, everything is held and everything can be witnessed in that space, and it's seeing it, and in understanding it is its integration.
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's also for me, like the secret witch, that's one of the biggest things she struggles with. It's almost the first lesson in all of this, the first kind of embodiment is that love for herself, because the secret witch will really beat herself up. That's part of her wounding, that she part of that story of that's kind of needing healing, is that capacity to bring love to herself in order to begin the process of seeing more and more and more, and expanding past all of the other stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but so it's interesting how it's like beating herself up, like the guilt, the could have done more, or the shame of something. So the beating herself up, and you can only do that when you bought into something that wasn't yours and wasn't true, right? So there, like, you bought into, you're not doing enough, you're not being in this situation the way you should be being. If you were really a good mother, or you were really a good, right, you're not here. Right? So those aren't your thoughts, they're thoughts. But somehow you bought it, and and then because you are magic, because you are a creator, the moment you bought it and focus there, it becomes true. And it's innocent and you don't realize you did it. But whenever you think something untrue of yourself, you will feel that. So when you think you're unworthy, it's not true. But if you buy that because of, you would prefer to do this instead of clean the house, or you would prefer to do that instead of, this other thing, like, and then you buy this unworthiness, then you will feel that you've believed something untrue. If you continue to believe, it will get worse. If you continue to believe, it will get worse. If you continue to believe, you will feel it physically. If you continue to believe, it will manifest physically, right? All of it intended to, this is all good, by the way, all of it intended to say, hey, wake up, something here to look at. Hey, wake up, something here to look at. Hey, wake up, something here to look at. So in the end of the day, whatever's in the body that isn't would be important to look at because you are totally unconscious to that.
That's gorgeous. There's again, the phrase I would use for that is like this, there's this material for liberation, and it's almost like, again, perfect full circle, like the secret witch, that's where she comes in to this expansion, this healing journey from, is that kind of misunderstanding of, that she's not enough, that she's not worthy. And that those are the stories that she's been innocently, unconsciously creating from. And there's such a healing power in illuminating those thoughts and beginning to really like offer herself love and come to see that she is love ultimately. There. Yeah, amazing. I think there was something else I feel like you were pointing to there. I'm just trying to remember back what it what it was. Just so much power. And also, like you say, the way that she's been creating like that, like you said, is a really good sign. Because actually it's proof that she's a powerful creatrix.
Yes. Yeah, that is the thing. That, see, it's like everything in this, in the physical, everything in the body is more and more proof of who you really are. And it's like, well, no, if I look at this is something I don't want. I have this, trouble over here, and I've got this issue over there, and it's kind of like, but that's the proof of. And when you look there and you see how that's created, you come to know your power to create, and you come to know how creation exists.
Thank you. That is so gorgeous. I think we're nearly up on time. There were a couple of questions from the group. I don't know whether you've got time to just quickly address those.
I love that.
We may have already addressed them. So the first question, I don't know whether we've already addressed these, by the way, so I'm just going to read them and we'll see where we go. So the first question was, what does Dominic personally do when he comes across resistance or negative emotions? Does he simply allow them to move through, or use them as a guidance system and deliberately refocus on something wanted or something else?
So from my understanding and knowing, right, I cannot feel something if I'm not thinking something. So negative emotion is, and actually all emotion, but anything felt, right? Again, there's an indivisibility. So anything felt is a reflection of something unseen, right? Anything physical is a reflection of something non-physical. So what do I do with that? So for me, in a state of stress, well, let me use some real examples of things that have happened. Like a worry about should we do this or this, like some decision that I'm making, a business challenge that I'm feeling like with some project I've taken on and starting to feel the stress and the planning of it. So for me, I'm picking it up in those cases. I'm picking it up before significant physical manifestation. In other words,
Mm.
I'm picking it up at a disturbance level, right?
I
In,
love
in
that.
other words, in other words, for me, I'm like, life is great. It's joyful. It's a lot of fun. Things are always working out for me. Isn't this a beautiful day? Right? Right. And so, but I'm like a little bit worried about this thing. So I'm picking up some disturbance at an emotional level that is not yet, it isn't yet fully gone down a path of, right? And so when I pick it up, though, I do pay attention. In other words, I know, and from my understanding, I know I cannot feel that without thinking something. Right? It's not possible, right? And so, what is the thought? So I'll tell you, in some recent things, I actually paused to say, wow, I'm like really, really feeling stressed. So then I paused and I could notice thoughts. I don't think I could do this. I always hate doing this kind of work. This kind of work takes so long. So now, if you really looked at these thoughts, and this is where you put them light into the light, now consciousness you're able to see. You're in a place of some choice. And for me on some of these is so apparent, like, really, I can't do this. Really, like, seriously, I can't do this. Like, you couldn't figure it out. Like, you haven't figured everything out ever, right? So it becomes kind of hard to keep that one going the moment you see it. If I didn't see it and I stay in stress, then I just keep going because I'm not paying attention. So so I don't, yeah. So what I know to do is pay attention because the guidance is in the feeling, and the feeling is pointing to the um, the validity or value, I'll say, about whatever is there, um, or not.
Mm.
And yeah.
What's just really become clear to me, and we talked to this a little bit before we began recording as well, but it's just the way you've described that has just become really, really clear to me that the way that you are able to alchemize that in almost like this really, just such a really sovereign, clean, clear way, like without very much healing almost at all. Um, there's obviously some alchemy there, but in terms of like real contrast to the secret witch, it's almost like there's just such a level of embodied power within you. It's like you've come so far along in that journey of embodying that power, embodying your fullness, that experience of alchemy there would be a lot different to that of the secret witch, who's really like embedded in this embodiment of what she doesn't want, if that makes sense.
Totally. And we all have those places, by the way, so it can't be missing
Mm,
for me. It can't be missing,
mm,
right?
mm,
So that example, which is okay, great. I kind of really get that. And so when it comes to money and business and all of that stuff, I can quickly move through these things. But then there are things that become more of that sort of in physical, like where you experience like things like, oh, my back hurts or whatever that is, that now becomes, so what I know that is, but I'm unaware, right? There's something there that began as a thought like I just described, and I didn't catch it, and I thought it was okay to just work through the stress. You see what I'm saying? So, oh, that's okay. You know what? And then other beliefs come in. Other beliefs come in like, well, what do you think? it was going to be easy. Of course, you're going to have to make some sacrifice. Of course, you're going to have to work at this, right? So I bought the next one and the next one. And so it's like, but that's reasonable. I'm not being unreasonable. This is reasonable. It does take some work if you want to accomplish it. So you keep buying it, and you don't notice it, and it keeps going until you are so out of alignment. Like, the truth is, wow, I should have said no. The truth is, I should have said no, but I didn't want to disappoint them. And they came to me and asked for that. So they, and what am I going to do? Turn them down? And I know I don't really love that, but shouldn't I still, like, do it for them? Don't you think? So when you don't, so that one, if you miss it, or you think that what you're saying is reasonable, like, but I really care about people, so I do want to help them too, and so and I just bought into that I can help them by sacrificing something in myself, and then I can give it, like, do you see what I mean? And then you're at a place of where, oh my God, I am so stressed, and I am so that. And then and we will all miss these. Like, we will miss them. And by the way, in many of those I've missed over and over and over and over. And it's to your point, is to say, hey, when are you going to clear that one up?
Yeah.
When are you going to clear that one up? And it's like, well, when are you going to care to clear it up? Because as long as you're okay with kind of slogging through it, then it'll just keep coming. It'll just keep coming.
There's a real, again, pointing back to power and sovereignty, there's that kind of element of choice. Like, it's really up to us to choose to alchemize all of this and heal all of this. And I think you've just summed that out really beautifully as well in that. But there's just, again, for me, just really witnessing, and it's been true from my own journey from Secret Witch to Queen, which as well, as we expand, as we do kind of get that elevation and create that elevation for ourselves as to the stories that are going on, these beliefs that we're buying into, there is a kind of rising in our capacity to be able to hold more, if that makes sense.
Absolutely from in a way, you could think from the and it is, by the way, it's always expansion and always rising. That might be something worth remembering or knowing. There is no regression in the universe. You will never become less than what you expand to. And so so it is always, so as you're able to hold more and more and more and more, right? Any attempt at diminishment of that will be very painful, right? So so you will feel it immediately, right? So that the nature of consciousness, the nature of who you really are, is expansion. It is expansion eternally. And so there is no regression ever. Way I would say is the universe will never be less than what it is. God will never at some day be less than what God was today. Right? So there's only more and more and more expression of that spiritual formless energy.
Gorgeous. Thank you for that. Yeah. So our other question was, it seems to me it's not either or, three principles or healing. It would be interesting to explore what thought actually is and what healing is. I think we've probably done that actually. And she's also put, or who/what it is that is manifesting and what we need to be or feel happy.
Who is manifesting? Yeah, that's a really great question. Who manifests is all that you are. Who is magic? Who is magic? All that you are. When you misunderstand and you think you don't know who you are, you don't know all that you are, if you come from a belief that the physical finite perspective is magic and manifesting, it's okay. You'll see that that's not the case. It's sort of like when you misunderstand gravity. You won't be for long. You'll get it. You'll eventually get it, So because it's so who is magic? What it, who's manifesting? All that you are is the manifester. All that you are is the creator. That is the witch, queen, witch, how you say it. That is all that you are. Right? So it is in the expanding who you see yourself to be into who you really are, all that you are, that then your power, that comes into your power.
Another way I've heard you describe this, I think, before, and the way that I often describe it, is this kind of like co-creation between spirit and soul. And I don't know if you specifically use that
Okay.
language, but I don't know whether you can speak a little bit to that.
So, yeah, so that's a good sort of, like, it becomes more perspective, another perspective of it. Might be a step, right? Because in co-creating, like, even listen to the language. I co-create with the universe. Okay, so even in the language there's two of me, right? That's okay, but that at least is closer. At least I don't confuse the physical me with the universe. But eventually, as someone who knew once said, I and my father are one, right? I and my
Mm.
father are one. So I am co-creating with the universe. I co-create with God. I co-create with all that is. But do you know who you are? Right? Because if you know who you are, then then what we could say is you are co-creating with yourself. And maybe the other language becomes you are co-creating with, between, in a dance between your broader perspective and your more focused perspective. That
I
would
love that.
be, yeah, that's what's happening. So your more focused perspective is where the feeling of desire and preference and the what you want is coming from, that more focused perspective. And in the broader perspective is all of the power and intelligence to express that.
Another thing that I've heard you speak to, I think, before, and that I often link into that co-creation talk, is that kind of idea of Michael Beckwith's stages of like creation, things happening to me, to it, through me, as me. And I think there's that kind of like you say, the co-creation is almost that step towards seeing that creation as me, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, you could say, now this kind of gets, you could say, you're not creating anything. It's all now. If you really knew who you are, right? And Sydney Banks said, you are the energy of all things. You are the energy of all things. So that means all things, right? Well, so then if you are the energy or the essence of all things, so when it comes to creating, you're not creating anything because everything you would create exists. You are the essence of it. Well, so what you're really doing is you are defining what you prefer to express in this moment.
I love that. Mm,
You are defining who you prefer to be in this moment.
yes. Oh, yeah.
So and when you are being one way over another, when you are being this way, in its expression, you will experience that way of being. So when you are being loving, when you are being abundant, that expression of that energy will reflect back to you in an experience of abundance, which we call manifestation. Wow, look at that. That's abundance. That is an example of abundance. That is one example of abundance. And by the way, the example you would experience would be so different than mine. I may prefer a different example of abundance than yours. Someone else may want an abundance, which means they have total freedom to do whatever they want whenever they want. For me, an example of abundance may be certain material things and money and all kinds of other things. And that's my experience. But we are each aligning and being a way of being which then reflects back to us. So this manifestation is not creating anything. This is kind of a bit of a more advanced way our conversation is further along the path, right? You're really like you're already all things. There's nothing to create, but there is something to experience. And so,
yeah, that's gorgeous. And I think also the work for the Witch Queen is maybe really even understanding what it is that she wants to experience through this unique expression of soul. Gorgeous.
Yes. There is that. And here's the thing on that, I think that's so important. You do know what you want to experience from your broader perspective. If you don't know what you want to experience, I'll tell you who's confused, and that's the little you. The big you is not at all confused. The true soul, the true desire, has enormous clarity of how it's going to express through 100 years. So if anyone's confused, it is not the true you and all that you are.
I love that too. I love that so much. Gosh, I could talk to you all day on this. So, yeah, that again feels really juicy. Yeah, because again, until we've done the alchemy, we can't, we're still in that secret witch, kind of really confused about what it is that we're here to create instead of allowing our soul to be fully expressed. Yeah.
Right.
Gorgeous. Well, it feels like that's an excellent place to end. We've gone well over, so thank you so much for your all your magic there. That was just such a juicy conversation. Thank you so much, Dominic.
Thank you. Thanks for this invitation. I learned a lot. I enjoyed exploring this with you.
Yeah, me too. And where can people find out more about you? I know you've got your magical group, so if you share all of that, I'll put it all in the show notes as well.
Great. So if you do my name, dominicscaffidi.com, so just that as a website, you will find a lot of free resources. There's webinar replays. There's even a course that is called You Create Your Own Reality. So there's tons of free stuff there. And then I do deliberate creator groups and things like that. And then on Facebook, I have a very active group and a lot of fun. And that group is called Ask and It Is Given, How Thoughts Turn to Things. And so Ask and It Is Given on Facebook as a group. Please join that. If you enjoy this conversation, we share and we have conversations exploring this all the time. So those are two good ways to connect.
Yeah, gorgeous. And I'm also a member in that group, so I can confirm it is a magical one. Excellent. Thank you so much, Dominic. It's been a really great conversation. I loved it. So I know that many of our secret witches and witch queens will enjoy this one. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Nicole. Great talking to you again.
Oh my goodness, there were so many takeaways from this episode that I'm going to do my best to share as many as I can. It can be so tempting to dismiss something that we don't agree with. For example, the idea that we may need to heal. Yet the real alchemy is found in openly going into our resistance and contrast with curiosity as to where the synergy can be found. Healing is really an expansion, a seeing of all that is held unconsciously in shadow, which could be called our wounding, and expanding into the fullness that we have always been beyond our shadowy fears and doubts, aka thought. Our work in healing really is to catch all the places we don't see where we are creating what we don't want and expand beyond that. And the secret witch, and all of us really, is already creating her reality. And it's so healing to recognize this. As we come to know this more fully through our expansion, we become the true and fully integrated expression of our witch queens, creating as our divine soul's unique essence. The witch really is a powerful symbol, a lens or an archetypal story that acts as a mirror to reflect our true power and magic. The witch, after all, is a powerful, wise, magical, creative force. There are really no limitations for you to be less than, only you are creating it that way. And we must go into that powerful ownership only with the utmost love and compassion for ourselves, as otherwise we won't be able to see it. The only place we can create magic is in our body. Dismissing our bodies, which is often done in the ascension path innocently, devalues our experience in form, creating separation. And yet there's no such thing as an unexpressed, formless energy. Spirit and soul are always expressing through you. If we dismiss the physical body, we dismiss our full expression. And this is how we know we need healing or expansion. Our bodies offer us the signs via illness, disease, imbalance, etc., until we choose to expand, heal, and fully express. In fact, we chose our bodies. We came here to live in our unique contrasts because it allows us to expand and heal into the creator or creatrix that you really are. And you choosing that will be healing for others on the same path as you. You wanted this life for your expansion, for the healing that is beyond the experience that restores aliveness where it was limited. There's nothing to do, but there is always aligned action to take. You are a unique expression of the universe, and you're here for 100 years. Do you think the universe wanted to show up here physically as you for 100 years and do nothing? You are here to expand into living fully as your unique expression, as the witch queen who knows her power and magic, and you get to choose to do that. You are the magic, and it does take a great level of sovereign power to be able to fully own our innocent creation of it that we are not. This is the beauty of the path of soul for the secret witch, who feels her wounding so deeply. Walking the path towards her witch queen guides her into that power, to her own creation, and begins to express her fullness, to become her expression of magic. And there's a real power in having a soul guide who will know that you are already a witch queen along the way until you know it yourself. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.